Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I know it's been a little bit since I've been on here. I've been moving, I had a little bit of jury duty. It took me a while to get back in the flow of things. I am in a new space, so if the sound is a little different than you're used to, I'm still getting the space set up, and so there is still a little bit of echo going on in here, but I think we've got it pretty well situated right now. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm really excited about just getting back into the flow of things and starting getting more videos out for you. And I have a bunch of them lined up, actually. One of the ones I wanted to do is actually something I filmed about 2 weeks ago. You guys know I put out that Cadaver video showing how much crazy damage he can do, up to 2.5 million per hit against the easy clan boss. One of the things I promised in that was showing how that comp can work on Ultra Nightmare. And that's what I want to show you guys today. Now, it's not, like I said, I did film this a while back. I have been running that same team actually for the last 2 weeks or so, which is kind of crazy because it's not a great team. And this is kind of what I knew even testing that is like, this is not going to be an Ultra Nightmare go-to team. It was just kind of an experiment to see what Cadaver can do. But I know a lot of you have been asking about it. And this Infinity comp concept is super intriguing and very enticing, right? It's an alluring kind of thing. It's new, it's different, has a lot of potential to it. You can use Corpulent Cadaver to do 1 million damage per hit. I mean, it's crazy stuff. Well, basically what I've done through the testing is I figured out you really need a Krisk in order to make this kind of comp shine. Now, you can do it without a Krisk. You can do it with a Lanicus. You can do it with a Sandlash Survivor and a Godseeker. Even you can do it with a, what's it called? A Flesh Terror if you wanted to. But the reason why it works really well with a Krisk is because with a Krisk and with an extender or two, you can keep increased speed buff on all your allies for the full fight. That means you can get to a 2-1 ratio pretty quickly and easily and maintain it. Otherwise, you have to bring in somebody like a Lydia. Even when you're using a couple Lanicuses, yeah, you can get away without having a speed champion, but you're never going to be at a full 2-1 ratio team, which is really where you want to be to maximize your damage. So there's there's limits to what you can do. Now, if you have a couple Lanicuses, 2 or 3 of them, man, go to town. You're probably going to have fun. You can probably build a pretty cool team, right? It offers you an extra slot for a DPS champion because, right, remember, we need 3 extenders plus Brogni. That's 4 champions. That really only leaves you a 5th champion. Right, with my team, I'm using a Lydia to get us the speed as well as decreased defense and weaken. If you have a Krisk, you now don't need to put a speed champion in there. You can bring somebody like a Corpulent Cadaver or a Draco or an Iron Brago, pretty much anybody you want to be that damage dealing champion for you. And if you have a couple Lanicuses, well, with that 30% turn meter boost, you can get close to a 2-1 ratio with that. Definitely doing enough attacks like it with all those ally attacks. So you can pretty much simulate a similar type of damage dealing team with just that. I don't have a Lanicus though. I don't have a Krisk. And so when I built that test team, I thought, let's see what it can do on Ultra Nightmare. Before we get in it, let me go ahead and shout out my Patreons. Got to do that every time. If you like the music, Soundstripe link is down below. And that's pretty much all we got. So let's go ahead. Let's look at the run. I'm going to talk us through the beginning of it, and then we'll go ahead and just, watch it be awesome. Okay, guys, you can see the team we have here. We've got Sandlash as our lead champion, giving us that little bit defensive aura, which is really nice. We also have, obviously, Corpulent Cadavers in that second slot. Corpulent's probably going to be the one taking the stun on this team, which is going to work out just fine for us. He has the biggest shield to help us stay alive longer, which is kind of important. But the way this is set up, everybody's on a 2-1 ratio except for Corpulent Cadaver and Underpriest Brogni. So their shields are going to be massive. So they're really the ones that we actually want to take these stuns and take these hits. Now, as we go through this, Corpulent Cadaver, there's some interesting things I learned about this. His damage is completely based off the shields. Completely based off the shields. So if we crit, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if we have crit damage, doesn't matter. All that's affecting is Corpulent Cadaver's base damage. It's not actually affecting the damage he's getting from the shield. And since that's the majority of the damage we're taking, I didn't bother with it. I didn't bother building a lot of crit rate. I didn't bother building a lot of crit damage. It wasn't needed. I didn't bother building his HP high because he was taking the stun. I wanted him to take less damage so the shields stay up longer. didn't matter. None of that made any difference to this run. So those are little things you can kind of keep in mind while you're running this team, or trying to build something like this. There's even a point where we lose decreased defense and weaken later on in the fight when Lydia dies. Doesn't affect the damage from Corpulent Cadaver. That's how I know none of that stuff matters. That shield damage is just straight damage put on top. It's the weirdest mechanic when it comes to damage. I don't know any other things that really work that way, but his does. So it's very, very resilient. One of the things that means actually is we don't actually need decreased defense or weaken for this comp to succeed, because he doesn't need it. So it is possible to bring in a different champion instead of Lydia, that's going to give us that speed boost and keep us rolling at a pretty good ratio. One champion we could think about using in the future would maybe be like a Golden Reaper, who's going to bring a decreased attack most of the time. Also has a little bit of a cooldown factor on his A1, and brings that speed boost and the turn meter boost. You'll have to, tune it a little bit better. You can probably go a little slower because he does have a 20% turn meter boost in it. But that would work wonders here, right? You can definitely use Tuna Hanorok, I think would be fabulous for this. With her she also brings increased defense and decreased attack. Maybe would be a much better choice than Lydia, I think, for a team like this. But again, we're still suffering from the fact we don't have 3 extenders. And without 3 extenders, you're going to notice we don't keep the buffs up the full time. And that's really where we start to hurt. It's great right now in the beginning, right? We're getting the shields on everyone and it's growing. But as we go along, it is going to be a problem. And we're going to end up losing champions like Godseeker, like Sandlash, and Lydia eventually to this type of team. Now, this is also the best run I've done doing this. And I've been running this for like 2 weeks. So just be aware, this is the best run I've done. It is not something I would expect. Usually this is about a 3-key team, which is still pretty good, but it's not like crazy good. So just kind of keep that in mind if you decide to try to build one of these. Very fun team to run. Pretty much auto right from the jump, but there are some drawbacks with that. I'm trying to think what else. There's 2 shields, right? We have the Divine Shield because we do have Corpulent Cadaver in a shield set. Remember how I said none of that stuff matters as far as his stats go? All we need him is to be defensive and tanky so that he can take the damage and loses less shields. That's it. We just stacked his defense. Other than that, getting him the speed, I figured why not put him in a shield set? We don't need crit damage. Just put him in a shield set, and it works great. So we have that one shield from the shield set. We have another shield coming from Brogni, and so between the 2 of them, we're growing both shields at the same time. So that's the advantage of having double shields, is Brogni's going to increase the shields based off the damage he does, 30% of the damage of his hits. If you watch his A2 hits, they're, well north of 100,000, probably like 150,000 or so. And so every one of those is growing those shields by, I don't know, something like 30,000 HP for each of them. Yeah, there you go. 136,000 on that. 30% of that is pretty close to 30,000. So imagine adding 30,000 to each shield, not just one. Now you're getting 60,000 HP per shield, and it's going to jump. It's going to jump Cadaver's damage up very quickly. It's also going to keep your champions alive a lot longer because those shields are just going to grow. It's a pretty fun little kind of comp. But you can see we're already losing some shield on Godseeker. We lost it at some point. We have it on everybody else right now, but it's really dependent on the RNG. If we don't get the cooldowns, we don't extend the shields, they fall off way too early. So that's the negative with this team. Otherwise, it's very fun, very neat. And the concept of this team works amazingly well. In fact, it works so well, there is a new world record out with it. So if you guys aren't aware, VictorTES broke the old world record that he set, and then he broke it again. And then he broke it again, and like by crazy numbers. I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'm going to keep those numbers under wrap. The pictures are going around, so I'm sure if you're really interested, you can find it out. But like insane numbers. And what is he using? He's using Corpulent Cadaver. That's what's doing this for him. So it's an amazing champ. This is an amazing comp. I'm really excited to hopefully get Victor on the channel and talk about it, because I think what he did with that team is just really brilliant. And lots of shout outs and props to Sharky for even pushing this kind of idea, and for Victor for actually realizing his potential with it. So anyway, I'll get off the screen. You guys can watch the rest of this run, and then we'll come back at the end and chat. 44 turns, 41, almost 42 million damage is really good. Now, I said this before. I just want to reiterate. This is the best damage I've done, period. This is usually a 3-key team. Usually somewhere between like 23 and 33 million. There's a pretty wide range. I have done 2-key damage again, but it's pretty rare. So just be aware, if you're going to build this team, it is a 3-key team. And you guys can see, like, those buffs do not stay on for the full fight. They do fall off from time to time. As much as I would love to say this is a very viable comp for everybody, it's not. That's just the reality of it. Without a Krisk, it's very, very hard to keep this team working and alive and make it really viable. So there is a bit of a high standard as far as the champions you need. But it's a very cool idea and it's a very cool comp. And I feel like we can still utilize these ideas and skills in our team. So, it's definitely not a waste. And it was pretty fun to build this one. So that's the team. That's the comp. This is probably the last video I ever do building an Infinity team until I pull my own Krisk. Just because it is so hard to make work without having a Krisk on your team. It's just really hard because basically what Krisk does is he frees up another champion slot. And when you're committing 4 champions to making a build run, it's very difficult. If you're not doing something like a Bad Eater where you can really bring in a damage dealer, it's just very, very difficult to make something really viable, I think. Now, there's always a potential of being able to go slower. Maybe you just want to protect one champion. You only need maybe, 2, I think, extenders and something like that if you keep your other champion going slower. So there's definitely possibilities of making this work in different ways. But I think the overall potential of this team is fairly limited. The one champion that can really take advantage of those massive shields is Corpulent Cadaver. And he's pretty ridiculous when he does. So this is one of those builds that's going to be like super end game. Strange because you're using a rare champion, but that's really, I think, where you're going to utilize this type of comp. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of just a fun niche type of thing that you can build out. But I wanted to be, because I know I showed that crazy damage Corpulent. I know a lot of people are like, ooh, I want to pull a Corpulent and build it out. You just need to be aware. There's kind of a cap on what this kind of build can do if you don't have a Krisk on your team. Again, I think if you have two Lanikisses, you might be able to get away with just bringing in another extender like a Godseeker or a Sandlash and actually maybe get to a 2-1 ratio just due to the turn meter boost that Lanikis brings. Maybe you're doing like 7 attacks a turn, right? Like a 3-2 type of speed, but enough to keep the buffs up full time and get enough extra attacks in there that we're actually putting up some really good damage. So that is a very strong possibility of a way to do this. I don't want to take away from that. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I don't know what else to tell you. Hit that subscribe, like, and yeah, till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.